Leadership and communication go hand in hand. In fact, I haven't been able to find anything that people might consider success that doesn't involve communication in one way or another, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. Now, one of the trends that I have seen, especially as of late, is that in the last 4 or 5 years, not that late, but you know what I mean, is that people who strive to help leaders improve their communication skills tend to narrow it down to simply this: you need a signature talk or a signature story that your audience can resonate with and that you can tweak and adapt to any length of time and to any scenario. Well, yes, having an understanding of what part of your story best resonates with your audience is important, but trying to shrink everything down to one story or to one specific talk can actually be a disservice to you instead of a service if you don't understand the elements of communication, the skills in communication that leaders should strive to improve. So, in this conversation of Sincerely Speaking, I'm going to expand a little bit on this idea of your signature talk or your signature story. And I am going to share with you the three main communication skills that all leaders should strive to improve in order to not just elevate your connection with your audience, but to get better results, whatever results look like to you. So if you're looking for more sales, if you're looking for greater engagement, if you're looking to activate your team, if you're looking to build or expand your team, or if you are simply looking for a way to better connect with the important people in your life, this is the conversation that is going to help you understand the main skills, not the only, the main skills in communication that can help elevate and that can help expand your leadership, your connection, and your results. You need confidence to move forward. Without confidence, you can't really achieve that dream, desire, calling, or lofty element, venture that you've had in your heart to do. Have you heard that before? That's what most experts and gurus out there sell you. Well, I have a slightly different take on it. I believe that you and I can create a feeling and a sense of confidence on demand that can propel us forward without us having to jump through all the hoops and try to figure out all the things that the gurus never really tell you how to do anyway. So if you have been struggling with this notion that you need more confidence, or if you simply have a goal, a dream, an aspiration, a movement, something that you want to start in this world, an impact that you want to have in others, and an influence that you want to use to support and help and do some good out there in the world, then I invite you to head on over to confidence.marciamaro.com, where you are going to find an amazing offer for my course, Confidence on Demand, which will give you the 3 secrets to generating that feeling and that sense of confidence when and where you need it. So again, head on over to confidence.marciamaro.com and take advantage of this opportunity to generate and create confidence when and where you need it. And in the meantime, stick around and chat with me here on Sincerely Speaking. See you soon. So complexity leads to confusion, and confusion leads to lack of results or not as powerful results as we could experience, right? So I understand the idea of boiling big elements to one or two simple things in order to make it more digestible and more manageable for the person that you're talking to, for the audience that you are aiming to reach. But I believe that sometimes we can oversimplify things and make them so narrow or so simplistic that they miss the mark. If you've ever experienced standing in front of an audience and sharing your signature talk or your signature story and getting the feedback, oh, that was so inspiring, that was so motivational, I love hearing you speak, your story's so amazing, but nobody's buying. But nobody's looking to work with you. But the ultimate result and the reason why you gave the speech, the story, the presentation in the first place didn't come to be, didn't happen, then there's a very large probability that even though your story is probably wonderful, even though you delivered it in a way that touched people's hearts, there was something missing in the communication aspect of it. There was something missing in the going from sheer inspiration to impact, of going from motivation to driving action. And the three skills that we're going to talk about today are key to helping make that shift, where you can go from just inspiring someone to impacting their life in such a way that they see themselves in your story, in such a way that they decide they have to do something about it and that they can, where it gives them hope that they can do what you did. When you can go from just being motivational to actually driving action, to moving people into doing things, that is when the magic happens. That is when your signature talk or your signature story actually gains power and it drives the results that you're after. So, the three skills that we're going to be talking about today are essential. And obviously, in the time we have together, I can't dive deeply into each of them, but I promise that I'm going to have further episodes where I will dive deeper into each one individually so we can get a little bit more of an idea of how to activate these skills and how to move them forward. And as always, if you want to talk further about this, if you just want help with it, just go to marciamaro.com. There's going to be a link to book a call, no obligation, and we can chat about what it is that you're hoping to do, what it is that you are aiming to create, the results that you're after, and how we can use communication to get you there. But without further ado, let's dive into the three keys that you should improve in order to elevate your leadership communication skills. So, I'm going to mention all three, and then I'm going to go a little bit into each one and tell you why they're so important and how you can start working on them. All right. So, the three skills are listening, and that shouldn't come as a surprise if you've followed me for any length of time. The second one is assertiveness or assertive communication. And the last one is trust building. Trust building. So, all three of those are elements or skills that are directly and closely linked to communication. And they are skills that will improve not just the way you communicate with others, but even the way you communicate with yourself. In fact, everything that I talk about starts from within. And you've heard me say that before. You need to lead yourself first. You need to learn how to communicate with yourself first. You need to elevate yourself first and your leadership and your ability and your belief and your trust and your confidence. And all those things need to be elevated first before you can help somebody else do it. You need to be at least 2 or 3 steps ahead of whoever you're aiming to help. And so that's really key. The things that we're going to be talking about today get to be applied inwardly first and then applied to sharing with your audience, sharing with the person that you're helping, with the person that you're serving. All right. So let's talk about leadership first. Listening, listening first. So, listening is extremely important, again, both in yourself and with others, because without listening and listening effectively, there's no real awareness. And without awareness, there cannot be real connection. So, oftentimes, we think that listening is reserved to one on one conversations. So, if you and I are chatting, or if it's a small group and we're all talking to each other, right? It's a two-way thing, then we obviously agree that listening is important. And most of us, when asked, will say that we know how to listen. But we've talked about this before, and I'm just going to mention it again. Hearing and listening are two different things. All of us hear, well, most of us hear, but very few of us actually listen. And we especially don't listen to ourselves very much. A lot of the conversations we have with ourselves are automatic and they are subconscious or unconscious. So we don't really pay attention to the things we say to ourselves. But we will dive more deeply into that in another conversation. And there are other conversations on Sincerely Speaking where I talk about that. So you can go and dig and find them. But the point is that even if you're speaking in a public speaking scenario where you're delivering a keynote or a speech, even if you are talking through the screen, even if you are having a conversation where it's mostly unilateral, right? You're talking and people are listening and they're not really talking back necessarily. There is an element of listening that still needs to happen and that still plays a part in how you deliver whatever it is that you're delivering, whether it is your signature talk, your signature story, a keynote, a workshop, whatever it is that you're doing. And listening, when it's one to many, has everything to do with being aware of context. You've probably heard the expression read the room, right? You need to read the room. Well, you get to read the room whether you are talking one on one, talking one to many, or talking through a screen. And I will give you a few tips on how you do that. But the important thing to understand is that listening brings awareness, and awareness leads to an understanding and an ability to align what you are saying with what is being received, what is intended with what is actually delivered, and with understanding what the other side of the conversation needs, desires, and is lacking maybe, or is maybe looking for in that conversation. When you know how to listen, when you effectively listen, you can step into something really important, which is validation. And validation is often misunderstood as meaning that you agree with the other person. Validation has to do with helping the other side understand that you get where they're coming from and that they're not crazy for thinking or believing what they're believing. So if I say something like, I know that you're probably thinking right now, Marcy, how can I possibly listen through a screen? And I am going to share with you how you do that. Then just that expression, I know you're probably thinking, probably caused you to lean forward a little bit, probably caused you to pay more attention to see if I really knew what you were thinking or not. And if I hit the mark, if you were thinking something along those lines, that suddenly made you feel very validated. If you've ever thought anything similar to what I just said, how can you possibly hear someone or have a listen through the screen? If you've ever thought anything like that, then you are now validated because you now understand that you're not the only one who thinks that, because I have now shared with you that I have experienced something similar and that I know where you're coming from, right? So I just gave you a key right there, and I hope you caught it. When you know your audience well enough, you can share with them the experiences that you've also been a part of, that you've also experienced in your walk, in your journey. And you can let them know that you understand where they're coming from. You can use their language to share with them that you've been where they are, that you understand where they're coming from, that they're not crazy for thinking or believing what they believe, and that you know that it's possible to get to the other side of that. I hope that made sense. So, validation is about sharing the human experience and saying things that illustrate the fact that whoever's listening is not alone, that whoever's on the other side of the conversation is not experiencing something that nobody else in the history of the planet has ever experienced, that they're not crazy for thinking or believing what they believe or think, and that you have actually been in a similar position to where they're at. Yes. So if you have a signature story or a signature talk, and you keep getting this feedback of, oh, you're so inspirational, pay attention to whether at any point in your speech or your presentation you are actively listening to your audience, and you're showing that listening by validating, by saying statements and saying things that show that you understand where they're coming from, that you've been there or are there, and that you have experienced what they're experiencing, that you know that what they're feeling and experiencing is normal, that they're not crazy, and that they have every right to feel or experience what they're experiencing. I hope that's making sense. So the listening piece is about connection. Obviously, if you're having a conversation where people are talking back to you, then a huge part of it is actually listening, actually paying attention to what they're saying. It's removing all the distractions and all the other end results that you might have in the back of your head, right? Like, I'm going to prove them wrong, or I'm going to change their mind, or I'm going to show them, or I'm going to retrain their brain, whatever it is that you're thinking that is your ideal result, remove it and make your only goal understanding what they are saying if they're talking back to you. But listening, and listening with an open mind and an open heart, is important. And a big part of listening, especially when you are talking to an audience that's across the screen or talking to a large audience, is using validating statements. It's saying things that you've heard your audience say before. It's saying things that you believe they might be experiencing and normalizing them by showing them that you've been there, that you have come out of it, that you've shared with others who have felt the same thing, and that it is okay to feel or experience that in one way or another, right? So if your signature story doesn't yield the end result at the end of people coming to you and saying, gosh, I thought you were talking about me. Or, gosh, how did you know that that's what I was feeling? Or, oh my, it was so amazing to hear you say that because I think that all the time, but I never say it. If you don't get statements like that, then you're not listening enough. You're not validating your audience enough. You are not bringing into what you are delivering the things that you get from listening to them. And that is really, really key. The second one is assertiveness. And assertiveness is often misunderstood. Like we think you are either assertive or you're not. Or we think that being assertive means almost being rude, right? Like being unmoving and unshakable in whatever it is that you're saying in your beliefs. And I just tip the table or whatever that might be. And that is not the case. Assertiveness is a continuum, right? And the continuum goes from, I call it from floor mat to bulldozer. That's what I call it. So assertiveness runs a spectrum from floor mat to bulldozer. When you're in the floor mat stage, you are letting the other person take charge, you're letting, or people take charge, you are letting the other side command the conversation. You're letting the other side sway you in what you believe to be true, and you are letting the other side be in control of where the conversation goes. When you are on the bulldozer end, then you are the one doing the controlling. You are the one shifting the other person. You are the one that's not letting the other person get a word in edgewise. You are the one that is making sure that the end result of the conversation is what you want it to be, and that you are fully in control and that you are fully the one taking charge of the interaction. And then assertiveness. What we tend to think of an assertive person is somewhere in the middle, right? So you can go from passive, which is the floor mat, to aggressive, which is the bulldozer. And then in the middle, there's that assertiveness piece that we tend to think about. And assertiveness is a middle ground where you get the respect you deserve, but you also honor the respect that the other person or people in the conversation deserve as well. So it's this middle ground where you make sure that you're heard, but you also make sure that you're hearing everybody else, where you say what you mean and mean what you say, but you also do it in a way that leaves an opening for the other person to disagree with you, for the other person to bring in what they believe, and for them to say what they mean and mean what they say, right? And we tend to operate in that continuum, and we go from one extreme to the other and back again, and we walk the gamut throughout that continuum on any given day, sometimes even within a few minutes, right? We do that because different interactions require different things. For example, if I'm talking to my mom and my mom is upset, I'm going to be the floor mat for a second and I'm going to let her vent. I'm going to let her say whatever she needs to say. I'm going to let her do what she needs to do for two reasons. One, I respect her at a different level because she's my mom, right? Like there's a almost a a venerating her, right? So there's like this, she's at a higher level in my mind and in my eyes, right? So I will allow her room to say and do things that I might not allow others. But the other part of it is if she's upset, I need to give her room to vent. She has a right to feel however she feels. And I get to be that receiving end of whatever it is that she's experiencing. So there's that part. But if I'm talking to my teenager and my teenager is being rebellious or is being disrespectful or is being ornery in any way, I'm going to be the bulldozer and I'm going to take charge and I'm going to take control and I'm going to tell her what's what. And there's no room for negotiation, right? So we have moments in which we operate at different levels of the spectrum. But for the most part, and especially when you are looking to connect, when you are looking to elevate that conversation, when you're looking to make the most out of that signature talk or that signature presentation or that signature story, whatever the case may be, assertiveness is important. And assertiveness is important, especially if it is a conversation or an interaction that you're hoping will lead to a sale, to a contract, or to someone working with you. And here's why. I'm reminded of the play Hamilton, right? I love that play. I reference it all the time. It's one of my favorite things to watch. But there's a line where Hamilton says to Burr, if you stand for nothing, what do you fall for? Right? Sorry. And if you've listened to, I believe it was last week's, the 200th episode, I talked a little bit about how you can't lead from the middle of the road. You have to take a stand. The reality of it is that if you are wishy-washy in your communication, if you say one thing and then take it back, if you are kind of apologetic about the things you're saying, then there's no reason for people to follow you. There's no reason for people to listen to you. And there's no reason for people to let you lead them. Because if you're just going to take one step forward and three steps back, they can do that pretty well on their own. They can go back and forth on their own without your help. They don't need to give you money or give you time or give you energy if all you're going to do is take them one step forward and three steps back. That's not going to happen. So you get to be assertive and say what you mean and mean what you say. One clear example that I use all the time is it bothers me when people are trying to lead, when they're trying to be coaches or experts, and they say things like, God or whatever you believe, right? I understand that they are not trying to be religious necessarily in the moment. And I understand that they might not be wanting to sound like they are forcing or ramming religion down your throat. But when you say expressions like that, what you're saying is in something as important as what you believe in terms of eternity and how the world works and why human beings are here. I mean, the essence and the crux of what we believe humanity to be. If you can be that wishy-washy and say, God or whatever you believe, then what else are you pandering about? What else are you being not so clear about or kind of condescending about, right? The people who believe in New Age talk about the universe without apology. They say, yeah, the universe stepped in and the universe did that. So why would the people who believe in God not do the same, right? And that's my belief. And I express it openly. I say, when God directs and when God says, and I speak about God and I don't color it, I don't put anything else behind it. What that does is the people who are offended by my mentioning of God are going to say goodbye. This is where we part ways. Bye bye. I won't see you again. And that's fine, more than fine. Because I am not meant to be liked by everybody. My mom says that you're not a $20 bill, so everybody will like you. And I believe that wholeheartedly, right? But the people who do believe what I believe, or the people who are not offended, the people who are open to a conversation about the possibility that there might be a God, are going to stick around and they're going to respect the fact that I am assertive about what I'm saying. And what I mean is God, what I say is God, and you can either like it or not. And I'm not trying to be offensive, but this is who I am. And so this is what I do. I have followed and I follow people who who curse when they are giving presentations. They use curse words. I don't curse. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it adds anything to the conversation. And sometimes I see why they might do it for shock factor or to bring your attention back or whatever. But I would respect them a lot less if they did curse and held back because they're presenting and held back because they're trying to appear to be something that they're not, right? So be you, say what you mean and mean what you say. And that is being assertive. And when you are looking to elevate your leadership communication skills, when you are looking to improve the way you show up, the best thing that you can do is be assertive in that sense. Is know what you stand for, mean what you say and say what you mean. And understand that some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it, some people are going to be indifferent about it. And all of that, the whole spectrum of it is okay. You just get to be you and you get to stand for something. And that something gets to show through. So if your presentation, if your signature talk, if your signature story, if your keynote, if whatever it is that you're delivering is not representative of who you really are, what you really mean, what is valuable to you, what your values or non-negotiables are, then that might be why you're not connecting with people, or at least not the right people in the right way. And that might be why you're falling flat because you're trying to filter who you are. You're trying to pick and choose and give of yourself piecemeal, not fully. And that doesn't work. right? So that's assertiveness. And the last one is trust building, trust building. So nowadays, it used to be that we would say people buy from people they like, right? And they've always talked about the know, like, and trust factor. It used to be, even as early as 2 or 3 years ago, that people would buy from people that they liked, even if they had just met them, even if they were seeing them for the first time, even if they had never heard of them before, even if there was no evidence that this person could deliver on the results that they were promising. If they liked them enough, they would buy from them and they would connect with them. Nowadays, it's more about trust than even know and like. You can have people who know you for years and follow you for years, and they're not buying from you because they don't trust you yet. You might have people who like you like a lot, and they follow everything that you do and everything that you put out for free, they get, and they are in your social media and they're interacting with you and they're doing all these things, but they're not buying from you because they don't trust you yet. So nowadays, trust is the key. And trust has to do with consistency. Trust has to do with every time they see you, they see the same person saying the same thing, standing for the same values, and presenting themselves in the same way, right? So when they see that consistency and they see that you do deliver, that if you say you're going to be on social media 3 times a week, you're on social media 3 times a week, right? And that can shift and alter. Recently, I posted on Instagram because I was really focused on Instagram for a few months. And I was posting 3 to 5 times a day on Instagram, which is insane. And I started to get a little burnt out. And I started to notice that I was putting out content that was less than valuable, right? Or content that was haphazard or done at the last minute or done just to check off the to-do list, right? Not necessarily because I believed it was adding anything to the lives of the people that I'm meant to serve. And so what I did was I added a post, a reel, I believe it was real, where I talked about how I was going to be showing up less because I wanted to show up more powerfully, and how my commitment is to add value, not just to throw stuff, right? And so I posted that. And since then, I've been posting about once a day. My goal is to post at least 3 times a week. And I will do that with valuable content. But my main goal is that anytime you see my face on Instagram, you know that there's something valuable coming. You know that there's something worth stopping and listening to when I'm there, right? And I'm adding more of a YouTube aspect to my communication and to my sharing of value and to my connecting with my audience. And therefore, I believe that it is in everybody's best interest for me to do this, but I communicated it. And the reason I took the time to create a reel around it is because I want you to trust me. I want you to know that if there's a shift in the way I show up, there's a reason behind it, and that you are a big part of it. And I don't want anybody who follows me on Instagram to suddenly say, you know what? I don't see Marcy anymore. I wonder what happened to her. And then forget about me or start ignoring me because they don't see me consistently showing up the way I did before, right? So there's a lot of elements that go into this, but trust is essential. Trust is essential. If you want to learn more about trust, I recommend the book The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. I'm looking over there because the book is right over there. The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. He goes through all the details, all the stats, why trust is so important, and how to build it. And I promise I will do a follow-up to this where we talk about each of these elements separately so you get more tools and strategies behind how to build these skills. But if you're looking to improve your leadership communication skills, these are the 3 things that we get to work on. And these are the 3 things that will elevate your messaging, that will elevate your connection, that will elevate anything that you're doing in order to connect and communicate with your audience so that it doesn't stay at just inspiration and motivation, but moves into real high impact and moves into driving action. And the three things again are listening, um, assertiveness, and trust building. Listening, assertiveness, and trust building. So before we go, let me ask you something. Which one of these three, listening, assertiveness, and trust building, do you struggle with the most? Let me know in the comments or send me a message. Go to Instagram and connect with me. Marcy.amaro is where I'm at. And let me know, which one is it that you struggle with the most? Is it the listening piece? Is it the assertiveness piece, or the trust building piece? And I will make sure to build more content around that and connect with each other. Go to the comments and connect with other people, and make sure to leave your questions and to let me know what you're thinking. Until next time, this has been Marcy Amaro, and this has been Sincerely Speaking. I look forward to hearing from you and to chatting with you soon. Bye-bye.